Hello and welcome to this class on Power BI. We are going to learn how do we use Power BI for importing the data, cleaning the data, transforming the data, and analyzing it for our powerful visualizations. And then after that, we will also be learning how do we share the data through the dashboards and the Power BI service with others so that they can engage or they can interact with our visualizations or dashboards. So thank you very much for joining into this class. We are going to explain first what are the recommended hardwares that we have to have for using the Power BI. Now, Power BI is a powerful tool and it requires a good RAM and a good processing power to be able to run into the system. So the available RAM for this system is 1.5 GB or more, even though 1 GB is recommended or minimum mentioned by the Microsoft. 1.5 GB is or more is better to have, then it will be having a good performance. CPU performance has to be 1 gigahertz or faster, and it could be a 86 or a 64-bit processor, so that it can take up the calculations easily. Then you have to have a display size of minimum 1400 into 900 or better 1600 into 900, and you need to display setting for the text should be 100% or less. uh, then we are going to look at now what is the Power BI, what is the business intelligence, why Power BI is used. So Power BI is a tool for business intelligence. Now business intelligence means that we are going to get the data from different sources. So we get the data from text files, from our ERPs, from the websites in the CSV format, in the text format, in the PDF format, through the database. So there are multiple ways the organizations produce financial data or or the marketing data or the customer data or any other kind of data. For example, even the population data, to be able to generate and analyze it for data analytics. Now, we use the data to make our decisions, but before we make our decisions, we need to capture the data, clean it for our purposes, transform that into something usable, and then we create the data models. Now, data modeling basically is to model the data suitable for our analysis purposes. So we may have different analytics requirements for us to make different kind of decisions. So the data modeling will basically take the raw data and analyze it and create measures out of it, create meaningful insights out of it, and connect them to each other so that there is a relationship between the data, between the different sources of data, and we could cross refer using certain keys or foreign keys or product keys or whatever unique identification that we want to create, and then use this model to analyze the data into further details to create visualizations. So then the next step is to make it easy, because the data could be in millions of rows. Now that millions of rows need to be translated into something easy to understand visualizations could be your charts, your graph, your maps, your tables, or just even a single card where we are saying a number only, or we could be multi level cards where we just say the number and the label of the number. That's it. So it could be anything. It could be related with very complex charts, beautiful charts, customized ones, or the standard ones, or it could be through a map where we show the data over the map, we plot the map. Um, we could have used the tables, which are also powerful media of visualizations. So that visualizations help the peoples to understand the data and understand the point that we want to really emphasize. So we will be looking at in this course over the some principles of visualization. What are the principles of visualization? How we visualize the data? What are the different charts that can be used, and in what scenario we use them, right? There may be multiple ways to visualize the data, but what is the most effective way? What is the easier way for for the audience to understand the data? So we will be covering up some certain principles of data visualizations as well. And then finally, once you have done all the hard work of getting the data, modeling the data, creating the visualizations, it's not used unless you are able to share it with your audience. So you need to be able to share it with your audience through your website, through the Power BI service, through the presentation, through the in the print. So Power BI has a lot of tools by which you can share the data. So that's the crux of the business intelligence, and we will be learning all these four steps in this particular class. Now, what are the Power BI tools for this each step? The Power BI offers a lot of tools for each step. So, getting the data, there is Power BI service and a Power BI desktop. Power BI desktop includes the Power BI analytical engine, data analysis engine, and also a query engine. The query engine is used for importing the data into Power BI and transforming it for different purposes, which we are going to learn in details now. After the data has been imported into the Power BI, then the next thing is to model the data. Now, modeling the data is very easy in Power BI desktop because that is an offline service. Power BI service is an online requirement where it may not have enough RAM or enough analytical power to be able to model the data. So it's better to use the Power BI desktop for modeling the data and analyzing the data rather than doing the Power BI service. Power BI service is great for getting the data in and also visualizing the data or creating the visuals, creating the reports out of it. But Power BI desktop is better for modeling the data. Both can do the visualization, both can do the service, both can create the reports, and you could teleport between the two services, Power BI desktop and Power BI service, into each other easily, right? So there is no problem with that. Then after that, you share with your team. Power BI desktop is not something which you can use for sharing with your team. You need to use only Power BI service. For that, you need to have Power BI Pro license. If you have a Power BI free license, then you can share it with yourself only. So you will not be able to share it with your team members. But with Power BI Pro license, you are able to share it with anybody else. And there are Power BI mobile apps as well, where people can look at the dashboards, charts through their mobile apps and while on the go and interact with them. So the interactivity is still there. You will not lose the interactivity with the chart, and the users will still be able to filter out the information or create their own charts if you permit them, of course, and get the insights from the data in real time. So that's the Power BI tools. In this class, we are going to focus mostly on Power BI desktop, and then we will also look at the Power BI service for sharing purposes. So even the getting data and visualization is exactly the same in Power BI service and Power BI desktop. But since Power BI desktop is great for data model, we will be working on the same tool for throughout the course, except for sharing. So in the sharing, in the creating the dashboards or sharing the information with the users, we will be using a Power BI service tool, and then we will be showing you how do we share the information. Now the that comes to the introduction part. Now, the first thing that we have to understand is the data transformation. So here are certain very common things that we are going to learn. After this slide, we will be going into Power BI and learn from ourselves. But here are certain common data transformation that we need usually, and we will be practicing. So we need basically headers. Then we need a header row for all the tables, all the data that we are importing. Sometimes when we are inputting the data, there is no header. There are blank rows, or the system will just say column one, column two, column three. That usually happens even in Excel when you are importing the data from outside. Usually you will not had had a row, but we need to tell the Power BI this column is for what, this row is for what. So need to have a header, need to have an index rows. Then there may be, usually with the data that comes out of the text files or from the ERP, there are multiple rows and there are multiple columns which we don't want in our analysis. So it's always better and prudent to clean them out so that the data size is reduced and the performance and the speed of the analytical engine of the Power BI is faster. So we will have to remove unnecessary columns out of the system. So we will be learning that. Then there are usually either we split the columns into two or we merge the columns into one. So that usually is a process which we are also going to learn in the Power BI query and also in the DAX engines. Then you will have to add certain columns and additional columns, helper columns, to help you with the analysis of the data or sort the data in the charts or in the tables or in the formats. So we're going to be learning them how we add the columns. Then there is something called unpivot. We will be learning that more in details when we go into the actual data visualization. Unpivot generally means that we may have a data in a table format where we have on the on the row side we have certain attributes, on the columns we may have like other attributes. But Power BI, in the Power BI generally we want to have columnar data, raw data only, more on the rows, not on the columns. So let's say imagine there is a table called product information over the period of years, where you have January column, February column, March column, April column. So the more columns you have in the data is usually difficult for Power BI, and it takes time for them to analyze the data. So instead of having a lot of columns, it's better to have a lot of rows. So that's where the unpivot comes into the picture, and we extract the data out for onto the rows. Then there are usually duplicates in the data. Sometimes it can have duplicates, it can have blanks, it can have values that we don't want, that we want to replace. So we are going to learn that aspect as well when we are going into the Power BI engine. So now let's start the Power BI desktop for our purposes. So I have already downloaded it. So you can, if you don't have it, you can download the Power BI desktop from your system and then fire it up. So Power BI you can download free from powerbi.microsoft.com, and there are usually releases, new releases all the time in the Power BI. So you have to ensure that you have the latest service in with you. So once you open up the Power BI, it will recognize that you have an account with the Power BI, so it will log you in automatically. Otherwise, it will just be without any login, and then it will immediately offer you what is the new, what's new in there, because Power BI is generated updated every month. That's why you will get the new features all the time. So you can always look at what's new in this particular month that is launched into the Power BI. There are forums. If you get stuck with anything else, then you can go into the forums and ask your questions, or Power BI, read Power BI blogs. There are tutorials with the sample data on, and also with the how we create the charts. So if you get stuck with any of the feature or don't know how to navigate through it, you can always go into the tutorials and watch these videos. In this video we are going to take you through the basic aspects of the Power BI, not every single feature, but what is the most essential features. So we will be covering that. And then on the left side you can see here we have option for get data or the recent resources. So if whatever resources we have used in the past, it also will be listed here so that we can use it, or you can open the existing reports in Power BI, whichever has been generated or shared with you, so you could actually use this one. Now we will close this file, we will not go into the get data from here. Before we start, let me give you a brief introduction of this interface. The interface is pretty easy. So let's start with the left side first. The left side, the first column is the visualization pane here. So we need to have a data and have a data model before we visualize anything. But this is something visualization pane or report pane. It can have multiple pages. So here you can see on the bottom left, you have page one. You can change the page name and the plus sign in the yellow. You could click it to get more pages. So you can have as many as pages as you want for the report. And then you can select the reports from that pages and pin them to the dashboard. So that's a possibility here. So this is purely for the reporting and visualizations. Then the next option here is the table view. So it will create, if you have a table, then it will show tables here with the data, what has been used in the data model. And then there is a something called relationship view, which we also going to look into the future. So basically it will show a relationship between all the tables that we have in our data model. And we could use this pane also to create more relationship if we want, or look at how the data is structured, which table is linked with what table and what is the relationship. So we could manage the all the relationships through here. So that's the left pane. Now let's go back to the report pane and look at this right side. So the right side, there are two major panes here, three major panes here. One is filter, which is used for filtering the data, or filtering the visualization. We can use this filter to create filters for the report. We don't create slicer or anything else from here, because slicer is a separate report from the in the Power BI. And so there's a different visualization. So this is mostly used for filtering the data for certain years or certain things that we want to use. We could filter the data for all the pages or on certain visualizations only. So this is flexible. So you can filter on this page only or filter on all the pages. So we could say we want to see only 2020 data. So we could put the data here, date field here, and select 2020 only. So all the reports, all the pages will always be selected to the current month or the one that we choose. So that's filter pane. Then there is a visualization pane, which is used for creating the visualization. So you can see here there are multiple visualizations which are available and even more. So there are get more visualizations. You can import visualizations from a file or from the add-ins. So there are add-ins into the Power BI, which you can source through the Power BI store. So we will be learning the standard ones first in this particular course, not the add-ins. And then the last one, and last and not the least, and the very important aspect of this pane is the fields, which is similar to what you will see in the Power Pivot in the pivot table in Excel, when which is giving the fields there to use for analysis in one side of the pane, which we can drill down through the or we can use it for row, column, or values or whatever. So that's the field pane, right? So and then we will come up to the ribbon, the data ribbon. So here is we have file ribbon, which is just only to save and import the files. Then you have home ribbon, which is used mostly for here. The most important aspect is data pane in this home ribbon, which is used for getting the data. So you can get the data from multiple options. You can get data from Excel workbook or existing Power BI data sets or Dataverse. If you have subscribed to the Dataverse service from the Microsoft, you could get it from the SQL server, text file, web. You can connect a website, and then it will pull in the data automatically. Mostly useful for like websites like Yahoo Finance or other financial websites which are publishing the data through their web platform. And then you could have a blank query, or there are more. If you had to download the data through the folders, so that's most useful when we have to get the data from the folder, from the PDF, or from the access, or from SQL, or any other ways that we have a lot of options for us to generate, and we can just only connect. So the important point here is we always create a connect towards the main source. So it's not that we are changing the main source. So whatever data modeling you do in this Power BI after connecting the data, it will not download a entire data set into the Power BI, but will create connections into the database. And then whatever modeling we are doing, it will only remain in the Power BI model, not going to affect the original data source. So that's a very important thing to remember. Then there are the other options. So we learned about this. We can actually enter the data manually as well. So once we have downloaded the data, which we are going to do in a bit after I introduce this entire section to you, you have queries, which is when we download the data from the Power BI, it's generally converted into tables, and each table is called a query, or you can say a power, and then you can this query or this particular table, you could transform the data inside that thing by using Power Query. So once you are downloading the data, the first option it will give, for example, let's say now let's download one data from the Power BI. Let's say download our first txt file. So I have in the materials which we will be giving you the link to download, there are csv files. So let's say I downloaded one file first, and then we will delete it because we will show you the different options to download. So let's say one file is downloaded here. So click open on it, and then it will create a connection between the csv file and the Power BI file. It will give you an interface automatically, because the CSV file Power BI knows that the delimiter to convert the text file or this CSV file into the Power BI data table is going to be the comma delimiter, and it will show the data sample data on the based on the first 200 rows. So you could see what is the data here, sample data, and if you are happy with it, you can just go to either load it or transform the data. So as a best practice, we never load the data directly into the Power BI data model, because we need to transform it before. Here, I if the data is all good, I have both the options. You could load it directly or you could transform the data. But because I can see my date is actually not in the proper format, so I should transform it before I download it, right? And then you can change the file name. So let's say I click on transform the data, it will open up in something called Power Query Editor. So that editor is already there, and it will usually create certain steps. So be, so now the Power Query is another tool within the Power BI. It doesn't come separately. You don't have to download it separately. It will come automatically, and it's the tool which is used for transformation of the data. Now, how do we transform the data? Let me quickly get you familiarized with this particular tool as well before we go. So similar to Power BI tool, it also has three different panes. One on this side is the list of queries. If you have multiple tables, it will list down here all the queries. So as I said, each table is considered one query. You can have multiple queries here, not a problem at all. You could have multiple tables here, multiple queries, or you can append them into one by putting all the queries into one particular form, or you can combine them by the rows. When we combine two queries to add the columns, it's called merge queries. And when we add the rows, let's say we have a data for 2017 here. If we download the data for 2018, 2019, 2020, then we will have multiple tables, right? But when we are analyzing the Power BI, in the Power BI, we don't want to have um, multiple tables for analyzing into it. So we have to combine them into one so that the analysis is more powerful. So once we want to add rows, it's called append queries, and you can see it here on the pane in the under the home ribbon. The first thing is the new query. You can add new query, new data source. You can add the new CSV file here, and you could enter the data manually as well. Then you can change the data source, manage the parameters, which will learn later on. And then there are certain there are certain things that we could do with the columns and rows. So we could choose the column which we want in Power BI. So once you click on choose column, it will show the list of columns in this particular Power BI. And if you want to remove certain column from here, we just need to click unclick it, uncheck it, and click OK. So it will not delete the column, but it will remove the column from the Power BI data model. So sometimes when we are not sure which that whether this column will be useful or not in the future, what we do is we choose the column and we remain the column in the data set rather than removing it. But if we are sure that we don't need this particular column, we can go ahead and remove the column. So we will be learning that in more details later on. Then you have rows. You could delete rows if you need it, and then split the columns column by. So these are multiple options that we are given. Then there are certain options for transforming the data into what we want to do: replace values, split the columns, or use the first row as auditor as the header, unpivot the data where we see unpivot columns, any column, all whatever we want to do with this particular column is here. And then you can add more columns here by adding click on add column by column from samples, which will be explaining you later how do we do that. And then there are a view for just to see how it is displayed here. So there's no data modeling here, there's no transformation here, it just show the view only. So we could see the column quality, column distribution. So we remove the column distribution if we don't want to see this. If you remove the column quality, then just only the column name and the rows, that's it. But we, as a best practice, I normally keep the column quality and the column distribution open so that I can see if there is any error in the data or empty rows that I need to address. So it's a very because the data could be in millions of rows, right? uh, Power BI is just going to show us only 100 a few rows, right? Not the entire data set. And the profiling is normally based on up to 1000 rows. So here you can see on the bottom left, it shows six column 999 plus rows, so it doesn't show all the rows. And then it will the column profiling is based on top 1000 rows. So you could actually go and click it and say column profiling should be based on entire data set. So it will recalculate the column profiles and the column quality, and it will give us the result based on the entire data set. And it will also tell us how many columns, how many rows are there. So we could scroll down and see how many rows are there. You can go as little as low as possible. It will keep on adding the number of rows. So we don't want to do that now. And then the last is the tools for diagnose or other things, which these are not necessary for transformation. So we will gonna be learning them at a later stage. Then the other important aspect of this Power Query tool is basically this query settings. So here you can change the name of the table. This name is very important because this is how it will show in our field list that we saw earlier, which we will show you now in just a bit. So we need to give it a name which is useful for us to understand what is the date. And then it will also give us the applied steps, what steps we are applying to transform the data. Let's say if you want to delete any data, or if you want to let's say we choose, go to the choose column, and we remove, let's say for example, discount, for just to see it. If you remove it, then you will see here there is a step edit automatically to say removed other columns. Now this is just a step. If you say it's I have accidentally done it, you could always go and click on this red X button, small red X button, and remove this step. And if you remove this step, the column will come back automatically. So this is a very powerful, you can say, is a recipe card of how we have done it. Why it's more powerful? Because let's say you have downloaded another query or have you have refreshed the data, you have added more data into this particular table into the original, and you refresh it. So the data will flow to the Power BI, and the Power Query will apply the same steps to the original file when the new data is inputted into the Power Query, and add the data to this particular table. So it will not just add the data whatever it is, because otherwise you have to keep on manually go in, change the data type, remove certain columns from here. Rather than that, the Power BI will do it for you based on certain recipe. So you have provided the recipe to, or the steps to the Power BI, that what steps need to be followed and in which order. Power BI will go into the pull in the new data, apply all these steps to the data transformation which you have used, and append into the query automatically for you. So you don't have to worry about it. So that's the very useful tool for us. Now, this was the brief introduction of Power BI. How do we do actually transformation data? We're gonna learn later. So once you have finished it, let's say you can go and close and apply, so you will be able to see that there is something, so this tool is this Power Query that we have just loaded, is going to be loaded into this Power BI tool. And now you can see that in the fields pane you have the total sales 2017. That's why I was saying the name of the table has to be good, because this is how it will show when you go into table view. You will be able to see this data as a table, and and the name will be from here. So then, and when you are going into this, then you also will be see the name here. So the name is a very important idea. Name is a very important thing which you have to actually make sure that is the name is correct. Even if let's say you forgot to change the name there, you could always come here, double click it and change the name. So that's not a problem. That is fine. So that is the Power BI query, Power BI and Power Query introduction only. And then these fields we can use in our data pane, that we will do later, because we never go and add the columns only directly to the visualization pane. We have to transform it, and we have to for value fields we have to create certain explicit measure which we are going to learn later during this class. So let me close this file without saving it, because I will re-download this data into the Power Query by using the other methods. That was the introduction. So I will download this data into the Power BI, and we will be doing these data transformations together with the data. But before that, let me explain you also certain other basic aspects of the tables and data. So in the table structure, there is in the Power BI, you have seen that one table was called one query, but there are different type of tables that we use in Power BI. One is called lookup table. Now, lookup table basically means that it's just a dimension table. For example, if you are looking at the table that we downloaded, sales 2017 was a fact table. Fact means this is what we are going to analyze. This is the sales that we want to analyze. The lookup table is going to be the information. If you have remembered, or if you have might have noticed, there were certain columns like product key, product name, sales representative identity, but you don't have all the data for analysis purposes. You don't have the product name, product color, product category, everything, right? So we need those detailed information also when we want to analyze and slice and dice the data. We want to know what color of the product has been the highest sale, what category is the highest sale, what are the top 15 products that we are selling, or this where which region we are selling more, right? So we want to know all of this information, but in the fact table we don't have all the information, because fact table is usually a very thin table containing only certain key transactions like the date, the product code, the sales representation code, the quantity, the value, or the price, or maybe the value or the cost price, right? so it doesn't have all the data inside it. We have to have other tables. So for that we will be we so there are certain things called like schema, which we will be explaining you now. How does it work? So we have to have a dimension table to look into the different dimensions of other details of our product, our stores, our factories, our regions that we are selling in. So these are the two tables which are connected, lookup table and fact table. So we have to establish what is a fact table and which one is a lookup table. So we have to establish them separately. Lookup table is also called dimension tables, and the dimension tables, and the fact table is also called the fact table, and there's no other name for the fact table. Then there is something called date table. In Power BI, to be able to do the analysis on the time intelligence, like for example, if you want to look at the quarterly sales last year quarter or similar same quarter last year or 2 years back, we need to have something called date table, because usually in the fact table the dates are there, but they may not be complete dates. So Power BI needs a date table in order to understand the continuity of the date, and then it can apply the analysis on that particular date table. So we need to have a date table, which we will going to learn how we create the date table, because the date tables are generally not available automatically outside the Power BI. So we need to have that date table. Then within these dates, within these tables, let's say we have 10 tables, we normally create relationship between the fact table and the lookup table or to the date table. So there can be multiple lookup tables which are connected to the same fact table, and that's why we call it star schema or snowflake, which we are going to learn now. What are these? And the most common relationship between these fact table and lookup table is created as one to many relationship. Now, what is the meaning of one to many relationship? Usually in the lookup table, there is only one row, one product, right? They are unique, correct? So in in the product table, there will be one row per product. But in the fact tables, the product can be sold multiple times. So when we are creating a relationship between the lookup table and the fact table, the relationship is created one to many, one in the lookup table, one product, and many products in the fact table. So that's usually is the relationship. It generally don't go other way around, like fact table to lookup table as one to many. Generally it will not happen like this. There could be another scenario where we have multiple products in lookup tables, and we create many to many relationship. Well, that's not a ideal scenario, because many to many relationships are not easy to handle in Power BI. It requires advanced skills, but most generally is used one to many. Now, what is star schema? So when we are creating relationship between the lookup table and fact table, it would look something like this. So there is a fact table where we have revenue, we have the IDs of different thing, dealer, model, branch, date, and other things. And then this fact table is connected with other dimension tables, so which is other like location table, la country table, details about the dealers, details about the dates, details about the dice, details about the product, and other things. Now this kind of, and sometimes the dimension table is also connected with other tables to get more grains. Now this type of data is not really an ideal data, because Power BI has to take a reference from this one dimension table, and then this dimension table will be linked with another table. It creates multiple steps, and the Power BI will become slower. So compared to this is called snowflake data scheme, which is not a good data type. The relationship type, the best relationship type is star schema, where um, one fact table is connected to the different dimension tables, and there is no direct relationship between the dimension tables, or these dimension tables are not linked with another dimension table. So that's called the star schema, and the right side is called the snowflake. Snowflake is not an ideal situation in Power BI, star schema is preferred. But there are certain exceptions where we have to create a snowflake for a couple of dimension tables to get the better analysis, but we will deal with them in a later stage. So these are the two type of relationships that we can create in the tables structure. Then the another thing to understand about the table structure is the granularity. Now, granularity means that how detailed is our transaction. Some tables are at the transaction level. Some tables are, let's say there is a let's say there is an example here. So there is two table here. One is sales order and one is sales order detail. Now the first table, the granularity is by sales order ID. So one line per order. But there could be another table which has multiple sales orders and multiple lines for each sales order by product. Now these are two, both are the fact tables, and they both have different granularity. One is only by the sales order and the other is going as detailed as to the product level. So the granularity is different. So when we are creating our analytics, we have to make sure that the granularity is the same between the fact tables and the or when we are creating the relationships, so that the analysis is done properly. The granularity can be by day, by month, by year, or by category, or by the product level. So it could have different granularities, and we have to remember that we have to have same granularity when we are comparing the data. So that's about the Power BI uh, table structure, and also the transformation. Now let's look at one example of how we actually do the import and transformation. So we're gonna open up the Power BI desktop again because we have closed it in the past, and we are going to relocate our data. Now, I showed you one example of how we get the data from a text file. So there is a different when we have multiple CSV files to download. The better way to download the data is to connect directly to the folder level. So let me go there first. Choose, because you can't find the folder into the normal scenario. Let's click on folder, and then we create a connect, click on connect. So it will ask us where is that particular folder, the browse. To browse it, let's go to the our browser, and we collect this is the folder name which you will get the link to download it. Then we click OK. It will create a path, and click OK again. Now the Power BI will identify all the files which are available in that particular folder. Now we may not want to, these all not all are the same file that we want to download, but at this stage we're gonna do anything. So we have to click on transform the data first. You have a choice to combine the data directly if they are all the same format, but at the moment, since they are not the same format, we cannot actually use them. So what we have to do is we have to click on transform data. So when we click on transform data, the Power BI will open up the table for us to transform. Now this is combining the files. This is not a actual data yet. We need to combine the data and we get it. So this is how we are going to learn now. So since first thing we have to see is that when we are combining different files, all the file format has to be the same. Otherwise we cannot combine the files, and the format has to be the same. So for a fact, I know these all CSV file have the same table structure, so they can be combined. But this particular table, the first one, is not the same. So what we have to do, we have to remove this from our analysis. So this for this we will go into say either keep the rows, means we have to select which rows to keep. But since we are not keeping the rows, we are deleting the rows. So we will go into say delete the rows, remove rows. So we will click on remove rows, and since the this row is on the top, we will say remove top rows. So we have option to remove bottom rows, remove every alternative rows, remove the duplicates. Since we don't have duplicates, we are not going to work on it. Remove blank rows. If they are blank, we can remove them, or remove the errors. So if there are errors in the data, we could remove them as well. But before we do that, we need to be able to understand if the error is minor. Otherwise, it will compromise the integrity of data if we remove majority of the data. So remove the top rows, click on it, and then it will ask you how many rows do we want to delete. So at the moment we have only one, so we click on one, type one, and then click OK. So the first row is deleted, and you can see there is a text, there is an applied step here, remove top rows. So whenever we are going to refresh the data, it will always remove the first top row to refresh the transaction, so it will never do it again. Now, when we are combining the files, different files, we have no use of date access, date modified, date created, or even extension, because extension is all same now. Even we don't need the file name here, because the file name will automatically be created by the Power BI. So we could select only this column and remove all other columns. So there are two options when we want to remove the columns. The first option is we select a column and we click on remove columns. So we can say there are two options, remove column or remove other column. So if you click on remove column, this particular column will be deleted. If you click on remove other columns, all other columns except this column will be removed. Now as I said, we have two choices. Because we want to keep only this column, so we can click on this and remove other columns, or we can click on this particular column and remove the column one by one as well. If we want to remove all the column, then we can say click on it and hold the control key and click on the top, and then you can select all the three columns here. Now you can go and say remove columns. That's also another option. The third option here is to select this particular column, because this is what we want to keep, and say remove other columns. So that's another option that we have for us. Now you can see that there's only one column. So how do we get the data? How do we combine the data? So there's an option for us here on the top of this column. Here you can see this little button where we say combine files. So we click on it, and then Power BI will do the magic by itself by combining all the files. So it will show us a sample for one file, for the first file, and then if we are happy with it, then we just click OK. And now the Power BI will continue to add the magical formulas. So, and then it will just combine the file. So we got one combined file for whole things. So it has done many steps. As you can see, there are multiple steps on both the sides. There are certain queries that are generated, and there are certain applied steps that are generated here. So what has happened here is that the Power BI actually went into the creating some helper queries to create a sample file, transform the file into it, and then transform the sample file, and then give us the final query. So we are interested only in this particular query, the final query, but we cannot delete them, because when we are adding the files in the future, Power BI is going to follow these simple steps again to add the more data. And you can see here there are certain things added here on already. We were until this we were until this one remove other columns, and these steps are automatically applied by the Power BI query. Extend Filtering the hidden files, invoke the custom function one, remove the other column and other things. And then it has also changed the type from the date. Now this data is ready for us for further transformation. Now what you need to do, first thing is this, we change the name of this table, because this is how it will show in our Power BI, and this will be the tab name when we have multiple other tables into the Power BI query. So the first thing is we need to change the name. So what is the name? This is the fact table, right? So you could either say fact underscore sales, or you can make it easier for you and say f sales data only, that's it. So it's easy because when we have to reuse the or refer the columns of this file of this table in the future, it should be easier for us to identify. So we need to choose a name which is very useful, right? So F sales, click enter, and then the name is changed already. Now we need to look at if the product, if the columns are good, if otherwise we could remove the columns by following the same logic. Choose columns where we can say if we want to keep on certain columns or not. Since all the columns are important for us, we will keep all of them. We will not remove anything. Or we could remove rows if there are any unnecessary rows. We don't want to do that now, so we can leave it as it is. Now, the next thing for transformation is to look at the data type, right? So first thing is you have to make sure that the data type is correct. Now you can see this is ISO date. Now ISO date is not really a useful name for us. So we want to change this name. So there are again different options for us to change the name. Click on the column, right click, double click on the name itself, and it will the text editor will open up again, and we can say transaction date, transaction date, right? So we have changed like this, or we could change by right clicking and click on rename the transaction. So we could say that as well. By so we have both the options. If we forgot to change the name here, we can even change this in the Power Query, Power BI data model itself. It will reflect the change here automatically. So that's not a problem. When you right click, you also get the options for removing the column, removing other columns, or duplicating this particular column. So there are multiple ways of doing this, but we are not doing that now, right? Now the other thing is what are we going to do with the type? So now this is 123, but we know this is a date, so it's not a right type. So when you click on this 123 little icon, it will open up the options for us, that this is a decimal number, means it will allow the decimals into the number. There's a fixed decimal number like a currency is actually the currency column, and then you have a whole number which will not be limited to a decimal. It will be showing the entire number. It could be a percentage column, but we don't want a percentage. It could be a date time. We Since we don't want time, we just only want the date, so we collect on the date. So here is the date. So in the date there are different options for us: date time, date, time only, and date, time, and time zone itself, which we don't want at the moment. Or it could be, we can change it to a AB text column, or a true false column, or a binary. We just saw that when we downloaded the file, it was a binary column, means this column contains more details to expand or to combine the files, so that's why it's called binary. Now, uh, we if we change, if let's say we change, now this is required to be changed to date. So let's change it to date first, and then we will discuss others. Now this has not changed. This cannot, because this was text. It could not change directly into the change. So let's remove this step first, and then remove this column into a decimal number first, maybe. And now we change it to a date column. So replace current, or add a new step, because we don't want to replace the current column. Add a new step. So we say add a new step. Again, it's a error. So let's change it to date time if we can. No, it does not add anything. Maybe to the text, add a new step. So let's remove all these steps because it does not yield anything to us. So now the transaction date is there. Let's change it to text first. Text. Here's the text. So add a new step. Now it's text. And now I think we should be able to convert it into a date. Add a new step. Now, why add a new step? Now you are able to see that we have converted our date into the date format. Uh, now you can see this has 253 distinct dates and 253 distinct things and 69 unique dates. And then you have 13 distinct numbers, 23 distinct numbers, 186 distinct numbers, nothing unique. Unique means it's coming only once in the time. Distinct means they may be multiplied, but the total count of distinct values is 186. uh, so now you can see we have changed the date, and there's a step. So now why we did not replace the step was that because when the Power BI query is going to download the new files, it will follow the same step. If we replace the existing step, it may get confused. That's why it's better to have a new step all the time. Right. The next one is this one product category is now categorized as 1, 2, 3. Now 1, 2, 3 is actually what? 1, 2, 3 is a number. We don't want to use this number because the Power BI will say, oh, this is a number, so let's aggregate it. So since this is a product ID, we don't want it to be aggregated, right? So we need to tell the Power BI that don't aggregate this. Now, how do we do that? We can replace this column with something else. We can say this is going to be the text or a, but this has to be a number which we want to see it as a number, so we don't want to remove it. So let me see, convert to a list. So now this is a whole number at the moment. So usually the Power BI, if it's a number, it will add up all the things which we don't want. So, but at the moment, I don't see an option to say that change the type. No, we cannot change the type. Transform. Okay, let's not do anything with this now. We can do it later. So this is a whole number only. This is a number. Sales rep ID is a number. Unit sold is also a number only. And this discount is a decimal because it has a discount. Now this discount is a percentage discount, right? Is a given. What is the discount value? It's a percentage discount which is given to on the retail price. So you have to understand the transaction. What is the column for? And this is COGS total, means is the total cost of goods sold. So we could actually get the cost of per product as well, if you want to know, right? So we could add that into the, but at the moment since we already have it, that's fine. Now this is a fact table only, so we are able to download only fact table. Where are the, we cannot analyze this without any other information. We don't know this product ID belongs to what is the name of this product. We don't know what is the name of the sales rep, where is it working. So there are other dimension tables which we have to download. Now for that we will learn how another method to download the to transform the data. So we will close it and apply it first. So that's the first table that we have downloaded, and we can say that we have transform one type. Now let's look at the other types when we are working on it. It will take some time because the data is big and my system is a bit slow. So you can see here it's working on 2017, 18, 19 different files, and it will combine the data because even though we saw that in the Power BI query, into the Power BI itself, into the data model, it will follow the same steps as the Power Query and combine the data. So now we can see here F cells has this one, and there are this is a transaction date. Then there are other columns which we could add. Now this sigma signs actually means that this is applicable for recording, for the aggregation, or it's a number which Power BI can use for analyzing it and and categorize it, aggregate these transactions for analytical purposes as a value, so which we don't want at the moment. So now, how do we add a data model? New data. So we can go to the click data. Now that file, the model that the other dimension tables are actually I have put into the Excel workbook so that I can demonstrate how we download from the Excel workbook as well. So now this is an Excel workbook. So click on Excel workbook, and there will be a file called dimension tables to be used with this data. Click open it. Now, the Power BI query will actually identify all the tables and say, okay, these are the tables available, right? So we'll say D category table. So it's a product category. So D means dimension. So we can say click OK. We will select this. We will select that D product sales. We will click on it and see, okay, this is fine file for us. The sales rep, it will be good for us. Supplier, it will good for us. Table 5. Now, what is this table 5? Table 5 basically is a repeat of the previous table, and um, it will have all the other. Oh, this is the table number 5 for our budget, right? So that we can download this. Table number 6 is the budget by the sales rep. Now this is important. Let's say in our Excel file we actually did not had the name of the table. Now like this, these tables, and it has to be a table format itself. So in the Excel there is a table format. Let me open up the file as well so that you can see what file we are using and how is it structured. So you would see that in this file we have two tabs, tables and budget, which you can see in the navigator. Also, it is telling us that there is a budget and a table. So this is a sheet which we don't need to download because we already have downloaded the tables inside it. And all these tables are into table format. So this is a table format when it's a blue and light blue and white. It's a table format, right? So and this table has a name. So when you click on the table design, you can see this is a name, table 5. Since we want we when I created this table, I forgot to change the table name. That's why it showed table 5 and table 6, but it's ideal to have a table name which is can be identifiable in Power BI query when we are going into navigator. That's why I say table 5, table 6 instead of saying that this is the budget for product budget by the sales representative. In these tables, in fact, these tables are already named as D sales rep, D product, D category, D supplier, and this so and so forth, right? So that's why in our navigator we are able to see what it is. So we could say that that's fine. We can change the name later on. So let's go into transform the data. So now we will the Power BI will download these tables and open up in Power BI query again. So now we have our fact sales which is already there and certain new table that we downloaded. So now this table, before we forget, was the budget by product. So we can change this by D budget by sales rep. So now we know that this file is a sales rep. And then we want to see this table name as the D budget by product. So we want to use this too. So we change the name. We whenever we are doing it, please use the camel case. All the so that is easy to read. Otherwise, it will be very difficult. You will not be able to make sense of what you have written here. Now we are going to transform the data. Now there is nothing much to transform because the data is already in the table format. We already have category ID, category, product, and sales rep, and the supplier and the supplier product and the now this is again something which we don't want to have by budget by month. As you say, product ID is there, product name is there, but there are multiple columns, January 20, February 20, and then the budget. So what we want to do, as I said, we want more columns. We want more rows, not the columns. So that's why we have to do something called unpivot. So we need to select the columns which we want to use. So let's say we selected these two columns, and now we are going to transform this other columns. So the other columns need to be in the rows. So what we said we will do is we will unpivot the table. So unpivot column. So there's a little option here. So you click on it and say unpivot what? Unpivot these two columns which are selected, or unpivot other columns. Since we don't want to unpivot these two, these are already good, we want to click unpivot other columns. So we click on other pivot columns. Now Power BI has already unpivoted for us. Now one product will have one line for the budget. So we can see the January 2020, February 2020, and the other type. So this is again what? It's a date, right? So we need to say the budget month, because this is a budget month, and this is a budget amount. So we need to change the table name so that we know later on what it is. And the data type for this is going to be the date. So now we have changed it. So these are the date. Or if we don't want to change it into the date, well, we have to change into the date. But the date is not a good things, right? We have to change it into the month and the year itself, because that's how we want it. And it was actually 2020. The system has already converted them into the January 2021. So that's not the right way of changing the budget. So let's remove this, and then now we are going to transform this by other methods. So what we are going to do, we are going to say that we are now going to add a new column or split the columns. So we need to split this column for month and for the year, and we will split the column by using a delimiter, because there is a, we can see there is a dash in between, and all the and we will be able to use it. So we click on it, and now we have a column. So Power BI has already selected the dash as by analyzing it, and then we just need to click OK. And now we have two columns, one for the month and one for the year. Now this year is a 2020 year, right? Yes, it's a 2020 year. Now we need to convert it into the budget 2000 and January 2020. But now, uh, since originally it was already Jan dash 20, but it was not the month, it was not the proper year or date column. That's why we didn't really use it, right? So we want to, this is the month, so that's fine. Month is there already. Now we need to add a new column. Let's say we can change the date. We don't want to change this to date now anymore, because that's not the right way of changing. So let's remain it um, as a number, as a number only. Or we need, if we want to name have a date column. No, let's remain it like this. Now then we have a budget month too. So this is number of years. So let's say we want to convert into the full month. So 2020. So how do we do that? We need to create a new column, right? And we need to say it's a custom column, or not, it's a column by example. We can use this option, column by example, from the selection. So what it will do is it will open up the another column one, and it will select only this column and will ask us to say what is the example, how do you want to change this. So I want to change this to, let's say, 2020, and I click tab. So every it will analyze and say, okay, what is there any other value? Because there is no other value in this column, so everything is going to be 2020. And we will say, okay, the formula is here, transform text dot combine text from the budget number and by this one, and then we click OK. So this column is going to be changed to there's be another column which called year budget month. So this is budget month, and this is budget year. Now this column is not required to us, so we could actually remove this column. We don't need this anymore, right? Because this we have already transformed this. So we will go into the transform and delete this column. Sorry, go to home and delete this column, remove this column. And we can move this column to near the budget month. So now we have a budget month and a budget year in in alphabetic numbers. So we could actually now go and combine these two files, combine these two columns, and we say add column. Now we can use it another say that we can merge these two columns by click on this and clicking on these two columns, selecting these two columns and say merge column. So because we want to add it one to one. Now we want, what kind of separator do we want? Do we want a column or a comma or a tab or a space, or what do we want? Or we can use a custom version. So custom version will ask us what do we want. Let's say we want to use a dash again. If you want to use a dash, otherwise we can use a space. Let's use space. And the new, what is the new column? The new column is budget month year. We don't want to have a space. And then we click OK. Now we have a third column where we have January 2020, February 2020 as a budget number. Now, do we want these two columns? We may not require these two columns, so we can remove them. Go to home and then remove them, remove columns. So these two columns are gone. Budget month and a year, and the budget amount is there. So that's done. Now we can do the same thing for the other budget sales rep. So select these two columns because we want to unpivot the column. Go to the go to the transform, and then go to unpivot in the any column tab here. Unpivot other columns. So now we get it again. Attribute is changed to budget month. And this is budget value, budget amount. Now since we don't want to have a same column again and again, same name, so budget sales rep budget amount for s- budget amount rep, and this product could be budget amount, sorry, budget names. Oh no, it's not the budget name, it's the budget amount product, right? So this is how we can we need to be very careful in what we are doing with the transformation, because we need these columns in the future. So we don't want to have a data transparency. Now we can actually we need to also do the same thing again here because we are following the same process. So we need to split this up, split this column up, split columns by the delimiter, and the delimiter is already selected. Say yes. So now these two are already done. Now what we want to do is we want to add these two columns again, right? Because this is what we wanted. So we can say budget these two. Then we go to add column, merge columns. I'm going into direct space now because I can see this is 2020. So I want to add these two columns. Oh yeah, we forgot to add the 2020 to make it full. So let's not go into this one first. Go into the add a column, calculate from examples, or even you can say let's use the custom column example. Custom column is we are going to add the column here. So let's say we want to add the budget to oops, sorry, it's a mistake. Budget 2 and space 20 we want to change it to, right? And so we need to combine, concatenate Let's click OK. Oops. So it's not the correct file. Remove it. Let's use the normal column here. Otherwise, we have a issue from selection. Oh, sorry, not from this selection. From this selection, right? And we change it to 2020. Now it's done. We click OK. Coming, we remove this column because we don't need this one anymore. And now we can select this one and create a merge column by saying space, because that's the word last time we used. Budget month here, and we can delete these two columns as well. Remove columns. Now we have our budget and the column. So we could say that this column and this column is the same. Yes, this column budget month year is the same, but that's not a issue because it's the same column name. So we don't need to worry about it. Now the next thing we have to do is to create relationships. For that, we need to say click and close and apply. There is another transformation which is left, which I will do later once I explain how do we create the relationship and why is it necessary. So let's do that, and then we will be able to look at the all the categories. So there is a data loaded already. Now you can see all the data is available here. The budget by product, budget by sales rep, the category product, or the sales rep, or the supplier, or the total sales, right? Now we need to go into the data view, relationship view. Now you will see the Power BI has created certain relationships already. Now why it has done it? Because it is smart and it knows that certain items are common in this one. That's why it has created a relationship. Now, what we need to do basically is to see how we can create, how we can combine them, right? So, let's see, we need to make it simpler. Budget supplier, let's say we put it here, budget product, right? And the budget supply and the supplier here as well. Wow, this is coming very complex. Let's make it here. We can close this first because otherwise it will be become too complex. Now we can see this easily. Budget one, budget product, supplier, and then how else is it connected? Let's see. Category. Okay, the category is here, and then we can see the budget by sales rep. Where is the other query? The sales rep is here. Oops. Now we have bring all our tables into one view, right? Now we can see that this fact table is connected with sales rep. Sales rep is connected with this budget rep. Oh, sorry, budget. Now, do we need this to be connected in this way, or we can disconnect this ratio, disconnect this thing, and connect directly to the sales rep? We could do that because, as we say, we want more on these, not a snowflake diagram. We want more on the on a star schema, right? So this budget categories definitely can be category because the foreign key here is the same, the sales rep. So what we need to do is we need to go here, remove this relationship, delete this relationship. We can just click on it and then delete it. It will delete automatically this relationship. Yes, we want to delete. Now it has deleted it. Now what we need to do is we need to pull this sales rep and put it onto the fact table directly. So now we have connected this relationship many to many. Oh yes, that's a problem because we have, because there are multiple sales rep in here, which is connected to the multiple sales rep in the budget. So we could create this, make this relationship active, but its cardinality is many to many. This should be used only if it's expected that neither column contains unique values, and this is significantly different behavior is understood if you know what is the problem. So the problem which will come is we will not be able to use this in an easy way. So we could do that, or we could go at a relationship, or we could go and keep on creating our sales rep relationship which is already there by product. So we need to leave our relationship with the budget and the product, and budget and sales rep and the product separately, because they are many to many relationships. So we can leave it as it is. But what about these two, supplier and category? Do we have to really keep on this one or not? But the thing is like, okay, how much, what is the category? There are only two line items, right? We could, instead of category here, instead of product, instead of category ID, we could directly put the category into the product. So we could remove this one, and the supplier also, we could remove the supplier name and its state into directly into the product list. And then we could easily create remove this one two tables from here, or we don't need the relationship between these, so that it does not create a snowflake relationship. Plus, there is no category ID here in the product. That's why we cannot make a direct relationship. There is no supplier ID here in the factual. That's why we are not able to create a direct relationship between this table and this table. So what we need to do is, now we need to go back into our query, and we need to merge these two tables into one, so that we don't have a lot of longer relationships, right? This one is necessary because we need this table, and we cannot combine the budget by month into the product category, right? So other, if let's say I want to go and add the budget, then either I have to create multiple columns for it, or we have to create multiple rows as we have created in this particular one, which is not an ideal situation, because otherwise then we will not be able to create a relationship between these two tables, the product and F sales, right? So let's, but we can do this, we can combine product and the D supplier and D category and D product. So how do we do that? Let's go into transform data again, and transform data, so that we are back into the Power Query. Now what we need to do is we need to merge the query. So the first the main query that we want to keep is the D product, so we need to select it, and now we need to merge the other queries with it, right? So we need to go and say, okay, merge queries. So what is this? We have learned about the manage columns, and now sort is we will learn later on. And then the other columns, which we have learned the split columns now, and we have learned also the use the first order as a row. If the header is not correct, then we could use this one. Replace value, we have not used it, we will use it later. Merge queries, so we wanted to merge the queries, so we click on merge queries, and it will ask which two queries. So first query is already selected because that's what we have selected, and then the second one is going to be our category, right? So let's click on category. Then it will ask how they are connected. So they are connected by category ID and category ID, so we need to select both the category IDs into this and click OK. So what will happen is it will create a new category here, D category, and the table name. What we need to do is we need to pull the values in from the table, because that's a binary column, and there is a option for here for us to expand into it. So we click on expand. We don't want all of this, so we will remove everything, and we just want the category name only. So we click category. Use original column as a prefix, we don't want to do that. Click OK, and it will change. So category is now available to us. Now, do we need category ID? We don't need it, right, anymore. So we can just go ahead and delete this column. Now we have supplier ID, right? So again, we follow the same principle, merge queries, and we select supplier queries. Where is supplier? Supplier is here. We click on supplier. Now, how is it connected? Supplier ID and supplier ID. Click OK. Table, click on expand. Now we need to select. Now we need to choose what do we want. We want supplier. Yes, we want supplier. Do we want supplier city or supplier state? Let's take supplier state. We don't want email ID for our analysis purpose, so we don't need to take that. Click OK. It will come in. So supplier is there. So we may want to change the name as a supplier name, and we want to change the state as a supplier state. Otherwise, we may get confused, right? Supplier state. Then done. Now, do we need supplier ID? We don't need supplier ID, so we can remove this. Remove columns. Done. So now we have done these two. Now, what about this? What about these two queries? What are we going to do with it? Are we delete them? Well, we don't need to delete them. What we just need to do is we need to click on enable load, remove it from here. Possible data loss warning. Okay, continue. And we need to remove the supplier and then right click on it and say enable load. So we remove it. We will remove this one. So these two are gone. Now only the table we should be able to see in Power BI is the F sales, D product, D sales rep, budget by product, and budget by sales rep. And then we will just close and apply, close and apply. So what it will do is, let's see what it does. It will automatically apply the changes. So these two tables are gone. Now we have a much cleaner way of our effect sales. So we have two tables here, facts, F sales, D product and D rep. And these two are connected with another tables for D budget and D budget by sales rep. And I explained why we cannot combine them together is because of the cardinality, right? Because otherwise we have to add. Now there is another way. There's another table which is not yet created, which we are going to create now, and we can link these two tables with that particular table as well. So there is a multiple type of relationship we could create. Now that is done. If we want to know what are the list of the tables and how they are relationship, we can go into manage relationship here in the home tab, and we could click it, and then we can see what are the current relationships at the moment. We could click on auto detect. If there is any new relationship, it will find it. Otherwise it will say no, we don't have any relationship, and we close it. We close it. We could inactive the relationship also in between the tables, so that if let's say we don't want the relationship to affect, that we will learn later on how we do that and where we use it. So we could do that as well. And then we say click close, and we are done with it. Now we are done with our basic data modeling. We go back to our Power BI view. Now we have these four tables. Now we need to start data model. Now we need to start the modeling of the data and start the analyzing the data, and that we will do in our next video.